In a world where keyboards rule the classroom, have we forgotten one of the simplest yet most powerful tools for learning? Today, we'll explore how handwriting shapes the brain, boosts literacy, and may just hold the key to unlocking every child's full potential. Welcome to the brighter side of education, research, innovation, and resources. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Hassler, here to enlighten and brighten the classrooms in America through focused conversation on important topics in education. What are the variables, and how can we duplicate it to maximize student outcomes? In an era where tablets and keyboards dominate classrooms, handwriting instruction is quietly disappearing from many early education programs. Yet research shows that writing by hand is far more than an old fashioned skill. It's a powerful driver of literacy, comprehension, and brain development. A landmark study by Karen James at Indiana University found that forming letters by hand activates neural pathways for reading and language in ways that typing does not. Similarly, Virginia Berninger's 2012 University of Washington study revealed that students who practiced handwriting wrote more words, expressed more ideas, and wrote faster than peers using keyboards. The motion of shaping each letter strengthens memory for language, aiding spelling, reading fluency, and comprehension. A 2020 Frontiers in Psychology review further showed that explicit handwriting instruction supports fine motor skills, attention, working memory, and academic confidence. Without it, children often face lasting challenges in reading, writing, and self expression. One form of handwriting, cursive, has largely vanished from schools since the Common Core standards of 2010, but research shows it engages the brain differently from print, can improve fluency and comprehension, and may help students with dyslexia avoid common letter reversals. Beyond the cognitive benefits, cursive can be highly motivating, giving children a sense of accomplishment and pride when mastered. To help us understand why this matters and how to address it, we're joined by handwriting instruction specialist Holly Britton. As the founder of Squiggle Squad method, she has spent over 25 years helping children, parents, and educators strengthen the connection between hand and brain to boost literacy and learning. Her approach, grounded in educational neuroscience, offers practical strategies that empower both teachers and students. Holly, welcome to the brighter side of education.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
What brought you on the path to handwriting?
Having children got me into education, and unexpectedly in homeschooling later, I just got so into teaching and education, ended up going into private school and public school. All of that introduced me to aspects of handwriting across various institutions and how it was being addressed in the nation. I saw a huge gap and a lot of misunderstanding about how it affects learning. And as we have watched handwriting fade into the background, we're also seeing spiraling literacy rates. And I just wonder if they couldn't be somewhat related.
So, Squiggle Squad, when did you start this and how did it begin?
I'd tried some of the methodologies when I was coaching kinder, was seeing that teachers coming into the profession had not been trained in how to teach children to handwrite at really young ages. So you're starting at 4, 5, and 6 years old, and they jump right into writing as a way of expressing yourself without any of the base skill building that was necessary at a very young age. So I went in trying to troubleshoot that and found out that the closer I got to their developmentally appropriate modalities, the better success we had with handwriting, namely allowing kids to move and using movement as a way of honing the coordination and dexterity skills that they would need to write letters by hand. So fast forward, I was watching kids from different backgrounds in mid to higher elementary levels and realizing that we're missing foundational skills. There's so much research out there. It's not for lack of research or misunderstanding about handwriting in literacy. It's that information is stuck in the books and has not yet reached the classrooms. So I wanted to be that bridge between what we know to be true in research and what we're practicing in the classroom. And Squiggle Squad was born. My daughter is my co-founder. She is a graphic designer, and we are about 5 years into it. We are now in schools across the United States.
What do you think is missing in handwriting instruction as it stands today? What kind of gaps have you seen, and how do you see it show up in other aspects of students' learning?
Not to be too cavalier about this, but we're actually missing handwriting instruction.
Yeah.
It's not being explicitly taught, and it's not being championed as a tool for literacy learning. It's been pushed to a back table, if at all. It's been expected that the kids will just pick it up as they go. We show them a symbol that we call a letter, and we expect them to make it as if they know how to form it correctly. So effectively, they are drawing shapes. So there's no efficiency. There's no attention to sizing or spacing, to baseline and capital versus lowercase. All of that affects legibility. And if it's too hard for a child to do, they're not going to want to do it. And instead
Right.
of teaching them how to do it and showing them properly and then giving them the practice to do it, the teacher simply sees the messy writing and says, I know you can do better. Go change that. And they
Yes.
send it back without any instruction to that kid. And the kid's going, okay, so how does a child make it better? They go slower. They think more about the writing than the concepts they are writing. So we've now taken them away from higher level learning, back to foundational skill practice. That window of opportunity for affecting handwriting to make it efficient and legible and automatic happens at the lower grades. I mean, they're just not addressing handwriting at all past first and second grade. Once you get past that, the muscle memory takes over and you write the way you write. And changing it is nearly impossible, especially if it's never addressed. So what Squiggle Squad does is separates the motor skill from the letter learning so that we are practicing physical and we are practicing cognitive. And when the child is ready to meet the two, then they can put a pencil in their hand and try tracing letters with a finger, and they're learning directionality. They're learning the symbols needed to understand handwriting instruction. Because if you give kids dotted lines with a dot and an arrow and tell them to practice, they will ignore those dots and arrows. I've
Wow.
sat in kindergarten classes where the teacher gives them a book. And by the way, the book is very fat and their hands are very little. So they can't hold down the binding while they practice their writing. And I sit at that table and I watch those kids practicing. They're struggling the entire time and they're writing however they want, bottom to top, clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So the kid believes that's the way you're supposed to do it. And the results are felt all the way up the academic pipeline.
We have a lot of focus on getting the content in. And so handwriting, when it comes to the language arts block, diminishes because you're trying to get in all those other skills.
And when we compartmentalize handwriting, especially at the early years where we push it into a block and we say, we're going to practice handwriting now we're going to leave it and do social studies where I'm going to have you write about your family, but there's no attention paid to the way that they write in their social studies block. Then you are reinforcing bad habits over good habits because the less time you spend in that handwriting block, the more time you need to give them practice doing it correctly.
Little ones have those tiny little hands. What do you think is like best to start off material wise?
So, this is a great question. We should understand why we use the writing implements we use. I like to say, don't start a habit you have to break. If a child can, let them. If a child at the age of 4 can hold a standard size pencil and form letters with little effort, there's no reason for me to go to a small pencil or a fat pencil or even a crayon, though it does help hand strength a lot to use
Okay.
fatter, smaller things. You can use those as tools for developing the skills that they need, or the strength, the coordination, the dexterity. If they struggle with dexterity and they can't pinch their fingers around a small pencil, then give them a fatter pencil. If their hand's very small and they're having a problem controlling the top part of the pencil because it's too long and unwieldy, then
Mhm.
give them a short pencil so that they don't have to worry about that extra length. But as soon as they can, and you do start seeing a tripod or a quad handhold, then just give them a regular pencil and you can make a big deal of it. The same would go for pencil grips. Maybe their problem is holding 3, so you need a little 3 hold one that you can do. And maybe it's that they are using their wrist too much, in which case you would choose a different one that maybe gives them a little bit of cushion. The reasons why you're giving them what you're giving them.
You talked about motions and the movement of the strokes, that kinesthetic connection. If you wanted to elaborate when it comes to handwriting and how that motion of writing then shapes the language pathways in the brain.
Yeah, this is the part that's really exciting when it comes to language acquisition and literacy learning. So we learn first about the written word through our eyes and our ears, and eventually what we pronounce. So all of that is coming fairly naturally and then acquired more so when a child is read to, seeing print in front of them. And then slowly they begin to make that association with the squiggles they see in a book or on paper to the sounds that they're hearing from the mouth of an adult reading to them. That's just super, super slow, and we call it print emergence. So they don't fully understand the symbolism behind all of it or the decoding part of it. So that's where phonics comes in. We start to show them the shape on the page that's called a B, and we start telling them the sound it makes is B. So now we want them to be able to reproduce sound. We call that encoding. So they're decoding one way. Now we want them to write it, which is encoding. That's the next step. And we want them to do it in a way that when they start putting them together, the movement is efficient, because the end goal of handwriting is quick, efficient, automatic, and legible writing. And that needs to seem super natural. So in order to make it feel natural, we need to tuck it into long-term memory. And we do that in part kinesthetically. We write the letter on the page, which reinforces the different regions of the brain that is trying to understand language, that is trying to make a connection between what they're seeing and the cognitive processes necessary to come to that light bulb moment that says, oh, I get it. Kinesthetic movement has been shown in many, many aspects, not just handwriting, to help solidify learning in a young child especially. So when we do things, we imprint them better into our brain. So when they are physically ready to hold a pencil and make movement, then we can start using the kinesthetic connection to help them understand how language is used on paper. And what handwriting instructors should be aware of is that when you're teaching a child a letter, you in your mind know that that letter is going to attach to another letter, that's going to attach to another letter, that's going to become a word and a sentence and a paragraph. So even though a child doesn't understand that, it's really important that the efficiency of that first letter is such that they're set up for the next letter and the next letter. Because in the end, we want that hand to flow so that it can be used as a tool for thinking, learning, and communicating. And if our hand doesn't flow, then our thoughts can't flow. We need it to be so automatic that we can think about what we're thinking and not about how we get it on paper.
There's ownership when it comes to writing. If you've created a paper and you write it handwriting first, your summary, your outline, your ideas, you have more ownership. It stays in your memory for recall longer, better.
I think that teachers of young children need to know that they're giving them a tool for the rest of their life. It accesses a part of your brain that nothing else can access. So we know people, when they need to think deeper, they go to handwriting. They say that handwriting mastery doesn't happen until sometimes in the middle school grades and sometimes higher.
What kind of tips do you have for teachers or parents whose child may be struggling with legible handwriting?
Broadly speaking, the best thing that you can do for a child is to evaluate the issue at hand, whether it's legibility or sizing or directionality. Start big and get smaller by doing large muscle movement, making those stroke movements in the air, tracing them large on big pieces of paper, get them coordinating their eye and their hand with a little bit of guidance, and allow that physical movement to happen before you're asking them to reproduce it from memory. And then you start to shrink everything in from the sides and bring it down to the hand on pencil. And then once you get to writing letters, you don't want to write too big because you start drawing that letter instead of writing it like a letter. So we do want to play with those sizings a little bit. Make sure that the directionality is not an issue for that kiddo. More times than not, it is. Top to bottom and clockwise circles are the most common, but it's also excessive pencil lifts. Like you get one letter that doesn't have to have a pencil lift at all, and they might lift their pencil twice to make that one letter. Go back to the traditional formation of lowercase letters and get that flow as best you can. And again, if it has to start big and get small, then do that and bring them up incrementally.
What about sandpaper letters?
Shaving cream.
I always love the shaving cream. Yes, we did shaving cream and chalk as well. I taught Montessori. Their sandpaper letters were always very nice. The kids seemed to really enjoy the texture of it. What about like lefties?
If we are trying to teach letter formation, doing it in interesting ways, it doesn't matter if it's sandpaper or chalk or shaving cream. You are getting them to move their muscles in the direction you want them to move their muscles. So you're still improving muscle memory in the direction associated with handwriting or letter formation strokes. I do have a lefty, and when I asked him about designing a handwriting program for lefties specifically, I said, is there anything that you would recommend that I design into this program that would have helped you as a lefty? And he said, well, Mom, just the first thing is don't let them write over the top of their hand. So you know how lefties sometimes will hook their hand over the top of their
Yes.
fingers in order to sort of pull the pencil across, ostensibly to keep it from smudging. But what I have seen is it has more to do with the push-pull aspect of writing, because they somehow have figured out that that pushing across motion is easier for them than to get underneath and pull it across. In the end, what our end objective is that they have this automatic, efficient writing, but also comfortable. We don't want to cause any kind of carpal tunnel or pressure. We want to build up longevity in a way that they can sustain it over the course of their lifetime without hurting themselves.
I have a left-handed son, and he definitely did the hook over and was always very annoyed with like spiralies on the left. And when you were
Yes.
talking about having to push down and hold down a book while writing, it became very hard. As righties too, it depends on, I guess, which side of the book you're writing on. So I didn't know if there was like any sort of strokes or strategies that you knew that would maybe help out those lefties.
They basically write the same way. It's just that the movement is a push or a pull versus, depending on the formation of each letter. In our program, we specifically have booklets that lay flat so that you
Yes.
don't have to worry about that binding as you're learning how to form letters.
Do you think hand strength has become an issue for poor handwriting? When I was teaching, I would give them putties of different strengths that they would twist and pull, and I would hide things inside there so they would have to pull it. And we would go from a softer putty to a tougher one, and that strength in their hands. I didn't know if that was ever an issue that you had come across or had any advice for.
Did they like those activities?
Oh, they loved it. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I found too, that they actually enjoy that. I think this problem is getting worse. And in the 3 years I've been in classrooms doing this with many children, I have absolutely seen the lack of hand strength. And I think that those kinds of things that you're doing are awesome. I also think parents just need to get those kids outside climbing monkey bars and doing things that actually strengthen their hands and not use handwriting to strengthen their hand. Use those outside activities and even Lego building and putty manipulation, Play-Doh, sorting, pinching. Those activities absolutely contribute to a child's ability to write by hand.
A lot of schools have stopped teaching cursive, but I found that the kids in my classroom were so excited to learn it. They wanted to learn it. It was like a sign of them being grown up. And so when they were done learning the lower and the uppercase, then they wanted to get quills. It was exciting for them. So, what are your thoughts on cursive?
In the past, it was an art form because handwriting was used in all of our business negotiations and personal interactions. How you wrote and the way it looked was a reflection on your education and your intellect. It's not so much that anymore. But what it is really important for is speed and efficiency. So there are some people like myself who continue to use print, but because I know cursive, I will do a hybrid of the two for efficient handwriting. That is okay. However, a child will never use that or come to that if they're never taught that. So again, we are depriving them of a possible useful tool for their life if we don't give them that option. I used to have girls stay in at lunch in my classroom because the school didn't teach cursive, but they knew that I knew cursive and they wanted me to teach them. Once they have the print in proper direction, adding that little ligature is just not difficult. Then
No.
it is like their eyes are open. They're like, it's not a mystery.
What happens when handwriting is not addressed in the child's early years?
Motor memory sinks in and it becomes almost impossible to change it later unless you get real buy-in from an older student that wants to get better at get faster or more efficient or make handwriting more easier for him or herself. It's really, really ingrained in the muscle memory. It's very hard to change without deliberate, intentional, focused instruction.
I've even seen where they completely avoid it at all costs. It's very laborious and they know that it doesn't look good. If they're exchanging papers with their peers, as they get older and someone is like, "Oh, I'm supposed to read your work to be able to grade it, like a pair thing, and I can't read it." And so that doesn't feel good.
Not only the kids avoid it, but when it's laborious for the kids, the teachers avoid it. The more the teachers avoid it, the less the kids are going to learn. There's a recent article in the New York Times about college professors needing to go back to Blue Book because of AI cheating that's happening, are having a hard time doing that because the kids can't write by hand. It affects them all the way up the academic pipeline.
What would you hope parents, teachers, and schools consider when it comes to handwriting instruction?
It needs to be addressed early and it needs to be addressed well. Handwriting instruction matters to young children. Breaking it down into incremental pieces is super, super important. And if you do that and it remains easy for students, then as you increase the challenge, they're up for it because they have experienced the intrinsic reward of being able to do it. Once that window closes, it's very hard to get it back.
So, where can parents or teachers go to be able to access your resources and the Squiggle Squad program?
Yeah, pretty easy. Just find me at squigglesquad.com. Any contact form on there will reach me personally, or you can reach me at Holly at squigglesquad.com. I'd love for your listeners to know about our free name worksheet generator that's on the homepage of the website. They can go on there, put their kiddos' names in the form, and it'll print out Squiggle Squad style their name on guidelines to help kids learn the capital letter at the first of their name and the lowercase letters to follow.
Oh, that's wonderful. And perfect timing for the beginning of the year when teachers are definitely running those off and making sure that they are learning how to write their name properly and well. Thank you so much for sharing, what you're doing with Squiggle Squad, your insights on handwriting, how it connects to language and your different strategies. I think that it's something that we don't talk enough about. And so I'm really excited that you came on to talk about it with us. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
I encourage you to look at how handwriting is taught or not taught in your classroom or home. It is the mission of this podcast to shine light on the good in education so that it spreads, affecting positive change. So let's keep working together to find solutions that focus on our children's success.